So, Michael, tell me a little bit about what you do.
So I basically go in people's houses, typically who are, some sort of autoimmune deficiency, Lyme disease. There something is going on that's really impacting them and making them more susceptible to environmentally acquired illness. And I'm going in with a team doing a deep dive, figuring out what exactly is going on with the air quality that's causing them these adverse health reactions. And then I put a plan together and actually fix those areas, get the place post tested, make sure it all came out perfect, and then that a contractor would come in and then reconstruct the place of whatever had to unfortunately get torn out.
And how did you get into this field?
Well, my dad's been a contractor since I'm 5 years old, so I've been around construction my entire life. So I'm really a second generation restoration guy. But how I got into really helping people, specifically for mold exposure and getting into more of the medical community, that really happened after Hurricane Sandy. I'm originally from the New York, New Jersey area. And so basically right after Hurricane Sandy, there was this big, event where everybody comes from all over the country, opportunistically looking to make money. And unfortunately, when that happens, a lot of corners get cut. And so I started seeing for like 7 years thereafter, people still sick that were supposedly remediated. And we would start opening up walls and find, that the mold, it just was just mold everywhere. And it made sense as to why they were sick, and especially considering they had thought the problem was resolved. And as I started getting into this, I started realizing there's a lot more issues actually with the remediation industry in general, how they actually look at the project. It's really more from like a construction based standpoint instead of a scientific based standpoint. And since we're dealing with a living organism, it really has to be done scientifically. So I started figuring out that there was some missing links here, and I started putting those pieces of the puzzle together. And that's what brought me to writing the book, The Mold Medic.
And yeah, how do you know if you're suffering from issues with mold rather than an autoimmune or just not knowing what's wrong? Because I know we recently saw in the news that Ryan Sutter had this issue. He was
Yeah.
ill for quite a long time and finally realized he was exposed to mold exposure because he was a firefighter.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And so how someone like that may know is, first off, typically when someone becomes ill with a mold illness, there's usually another genetic predisposition that happens first, such as Lyme disease or autoimmune disorder. From there, mold starts to exacerbate the situation because what's happening is your immune system's already fighting one battle, and now it has to fight another battle, right? And so it just overloads the immune system and really causes these adverse health reactions. That's why you'll notice when you talk to some people, like some people don't feel well around mold and others feel fine. So that's really that disparity between the two. It's because the one person happens to be fighting other things already, whereas the other person happens to be just genuinely healthy, where they're going to have a lot more easier time detoxifying mold from their body.
And what about people that live in apartments? Could they be exposed to this mold and not realize it?
Absolutely. Mold often is hidden behind the wall, so you don't actually see it. Now, what's interesting about mold is it's between 2 and 4 micrometers. So, in layman's terms, it's 25 times smaller than what the eye can actually see. So, by the time you see it on a wall, that means there's probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions of it there colonized together. And that's really what it takes to be able to see it. So, you know that it's a pretty big problem if you can see it on the wall.
Yeah, because come to think of it, I started getting sick myself when they came up and started ripping out the drywall in my apartment. And I just figured it was stress, it was this, it was that. And I'm wondering, can you get tested for this even though you start to feel better? Can you test and say like, oh, you had this in the past?
Yeah. Yeah, you can actually test the toxicity inside your body, right? So it's called an IgG marker test. And basically what it's testing for is mycotoxins inside your bloodstream. So if you've been actively recovering it, it probably would test lower levels than when you initially had this exposure. But I would imagine it was still there because you haven't really done anything to intentionally remove mold from your body since then. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
So it would probably still show up, although less than I'm sure when you first initially felt not too well from it.
It's true because I had the exact same symptoms as Ryan had, and I was like, going to the doctors, I found, a couple of things, and I already have the fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue. So I was like chalked it up to that. And then they tested me for other stuff, and I had other stuff I was diagnosed with. But now, after seeing that, I'm wondering maybe when they was it a time ago when they started ripping out the drywall in my apartment, which I no longer live in, thank goodness. I wonder if that caused it.
It sounds like it could have. If you look at the timing of it, it seems suspicious to say the least, right? You had this situation where they're ripping out drywall, and that's typically what happens, right? These guys, they come and they start ripping out drywall. That's going to release, potentially hundreds of thousands or millions of particles into the air at one shot. So if they're ripping out drywall and they're not protecting anything with plastic or engineering controls or equipment, and it gets dusty and aerosolized, that enters your breathing zone. It gets into the body. It starts to produce these reactions. So it sounds really suspicious if you have the similar results that Ryan Sutter went through, plus the timing of it all, it kind of lines up.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I have a doctor's appointment coming up. I'm gonna definitely ask about this because I never in a million years would have made the connection until I saw that, and then Joelle told me about you.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate, right? What's crazy to me is we take 20,000 breaths per day. So we consume more air than anything else on the planet. But whenever we're not feeling well or we're looking to optimize our health, we almost never go to air quality. We're like, oh, I just need to drink more water. I need to eat better food, right? Or I'm just having allergies. Well, allergies, all it is a foreign substance entering the body that produces an adverse health reaction. So it's very easy for mold to produce allergies.
And a lot of people are allergic to mold too, and but
Sure.
they don't realize when they're exposed to it, I'm assuming.
No, because we've never really been educated on that. Like, think about it. We kind of grew up in this era where, mold was not a big deal. You sprayed some bleach on it, you painted over it. And so we're kind of reversing that process now. We have to re-educate ourselves to say, no, mold actually is dangerous. We've seen it impact a lot of people, and we don't want to be one of those people. We want to actually do everything that we possibly can to prevent mold. And unfortunately, when we're met with that circumstance where there is mold, we want to take care of it properly. We don't want to have guys in our apartment just ripping open walls without the proper engineering controls. As you personally experience, that's what can happen. That can enter your body and really cause some adverse health reactions.
Exactly. And tell me a little bit about your book.
So I'm going to explain basically the three fundamentals of why I wrote the book in the first place. Chapter one, it kind of outlines, me being across from this guy who is in the industry 30 years, twice my age. And when I was asking him about why he did certain things that didn't work, I mean, the whole reason I was across the kitchen table from him is because the client asked me to come in there and help figure out why this remediation didn't work. And so as I started asking him some questions, his answer was, well, I've been doing this for 30 years and this is the way I've always done it. And that's kind of been like the, the saying of it all. Like, well, this is just the way it's always been done. Well, that doesn't mean doing it wrong for 30 years means that's what you should continue to keep doing. And so when I really dove into this, I realized there was just a fundamental issue with what people thought remediation actually was. And so mold is a living organism. I look at it exactly the way I look at a weed because it grows and reproduces very similarly. Mold has roots, just like weeds do, that grow into the building structure itself, like the wall, the insulation, things like that. Now, the other thing is mold produces spores, just like weeds produce seeds. These spores, they get airborne, and guess what? The second they find a source of water, it starts growing into more mold, just like the second seeds find more water in the soil, right? It starts to grow into more weeds. The difference is that mold doesn't need soil to grow. It's totally fine with sticking its roots right into your walls. So that makes things a little more challenging in terms of removing it. The second fundamental really is this. It needs water to grow, right? A source of water or moisture. I'm sure you've heard that before. It's a very known fact. We have to stop the actual opportunity that allowed the mold to grow in the first place. So a lot of these companies, they're taught to kind of come in, rip out the drywall, spray some chemicals, and they're like, job well done. Well, what we realize is that's not a job well done. Unfortunately, there's a lot more to it. So if you just rip out the drywall and you spray a chemical, you don't solve the actual water problem, such as fixing the window or repairing the leak. It's just going to come right back. The third and final fundamental that I found that the entire industry was missing was the fact that mold is a living organism that actively reproduces. And it actually can produce what's called mycotoxins, a toxic byproduct by certain species of molds that's used as a self-defense mechanism. It's really actually is mainly used so that when one mold species is growing in your wall and another mold species happens to be growing in the vicinity, it wants to make sure that that particular mold species is the alpha species, if you will, and so that the other species kind of backs off and grows the other direction. So it produces these things called mycotoxins. Things like Wi-Fi can actually accelerate the growth of mycotoxins, EMFs, things like that. There's a lot of studies on what exactly causes mold to produce mycotoxins, but we have a couple different ideas at the time. Either way, we want to make sure we're removing those products as part of the remediation. And so that means cleaning up the house, not just removing this one little spot on the wall, but literally cleaning the entire house, because we know that that one little spot produces tons of spores, tons of toxins. They get aerosolized, they circulate around the house. They could even contaminate the HVAC system, which is kind of like the lungs of the home. That really supplies all of the air that we breathe. So it needs to be a holistic approach, not just this, come in, rip out a wall and walk out your front door and get paid thousands of dollars. It needs to be a really thorough job to make sure we're protecting people's health. And so, I'm basically, with that book, I realized I wasn't going to solve the problem one house at a time, that I needed to get the information out into the hands of others and help really change this thing. And as you can tell, probably by me talking, I'm very passionate about that.
Yes, you're incredible. And where can we follow you on social media so we can keep seeing what you're doing? Because you are really amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. You can follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm most active, at the Mold Medic.
The Mold Medic. I am going to send you a follow and thank you for taking the time today. I really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. See you soon.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.